All right, very nice. Looks like we have a few dozen folks in climb in here for sales development remote time management strategies. Lauren Halper will be leading this session. Thank you so much, Lauren, for leading this. I'll kick it off to you to get things going.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. As Pete mentioned, my name is Lauren Halper. I am the head of North American Sales Development for Looker at Google Cloud. I'm located in New York and would love to just kind of introduce you to our other speakers. So first up, we have David Nixon, who is located in Dublin. So I know it's late there, so thanks for hopping on. He is the global head of SDRs at LinkedIn. We have David Nobrega, who is in Waterloo, Ontario. He is the manager of business development at Vidyard. And last but not least, we have Aaron Bollinger, who is the CRO of Chronologic, located in Austin, Texas. So I'm going to, actually, we're going to talk about 3 or 4 topics, depending on how much time we have. Hopefully we can get through 4, but we're going to kick it off with asynchronous communications and meeting efficiency. So Aaron, if you don't mind kicking us off on kind of how meeting efficiency has been going with you since you've been remote, how you're handling that with your team, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah. So I think a lot about time efficiency, optimizing the time. If you think about as a sales leader, as a seller, your most valuable asset is the time that you have. It really is. And it's also your most limited asset. It's impossible to get more unless you hire more and more people, which gets very expensive. So how do you make sure that in a remote world that time is best spent? And I think a lot about, and I work with my team on how we block out time strategically. So our playbook literally has here's things to block out time for each quarter. Here's things to block out time for each month, each week, and even each day. And that doesn't take up a huge amount of time. It's not blocked out. Here's how to manage all of your time, but here's how to make sure that all of these strategic things are always built into those different timelines. And I think it's very appropriate. I think that is treating people like a professional. You know, they're going to be really busy. And we know that. We're not going to micromanage. We're trying to say, let's get the time in ahead of time so that when you get really busy, you don't miss those opportunities, which everybody does. So I think, using the calendar more, mapping out your time more in the calendar is a bigger deal than ever before. And then, calendar is also a great way to see what everybody's doing, not just walking around an office. It's pretty old fashioned. Being able to pull up 15 different calendars and analyze those. I trust that the calendar even more than I do the CRM in terms of how people are using their time and the overall productivity they're working toward.
Awesome. So Aaron, that brings up a good point as being a CRO. I've noticed that a lot of leaders like to keep their calendars on private, so you can only see when they're busy, so you don't really know when they actually have something, or just blocking off time to get work done. So I guess you're a fan of visibility for your team?
I'm an oversharer of my calendar. I pull it up. Not only is it available, I also pull it up in meetings a lot of times when I'm looking to book time with people. And I'm not trying to do some weird flex. I'm just trying to share like, hey, I'm really busy, but you're also important to me. So let's try to combine those two things and figure out a time that works for us ASAP. And then I love, you were talking about asynchronous. Like I love I gotta say some of the ideas that David and David had around the asynchronous stuff is also something that I've already started to use at Chronologic, but I'll leave them to talk about it because I love some of the things they're doing.
Awesome. David Nobrega, anything on the asynchronous part that Aaron said you can kick it off for us?
Yeah, thank you for that lovely introduction, both Lauren and. So on the topic of asynchronous video and asynchronous communication, obviously Vidyard video is a big play in what we do and what we are. But we're also very, very big users of our own tech and using it to optimize where we can. Obviously, you mentioned pulling up 15 calendars. Sometimes it can be challenging to find an opening, and at the same time, when we're in an office, I'll also say that having 15 people on a conference call, whether it's Zoom or your whatever tool you're using, it can also get chaotic, and it also sometimes means that you're oftentimes spending 15-20 minutes to share the information, and then having 10 minutes of conversation about it, where it's like productive group time together. One of the big things we leverage is creating maybe a 10-minute video asynchronously that I can share with my team. That way, when we're going into a meeting, we already have, we'll say, a certain subset of knowledge. So we'll have the theme or the messaging of the meeting. And then rather than having a 30-minute meeting, we can scale it back to 15, maybe 20, and really just focus on the value of all of us being together in the same room, so we can have a good conversation and focus on that, as opposed to me just talking for the first 10 minutes to set up the remainder of the meeting. I'll say at the SDR team, Tenbound team, works very closely with marketing. So once a week, my SDR team lead will make a high-level overview video. It's like, hey, team, here's what to focus on this week. Here's what's coming in. And that way, it's a cool little video we make halfway through a week with a quick update. And similar to BR, we obviously work closely with marketing there too for looking at our pools of free and pro users. Same idea, allows me to make a quick video and just give them a quick high-level update for how we're trending throughout the week, not needing to have everyone in the same meeting. I can just drop it in Slack and we can use it. So really, really effective to kind of mitigate some of the challenges around getting 15 people into a Zoom meeting and getting 15 people's free time all at once, and then maximizing the value of being in the room for the collaboration side of things.
Awesome, I love that. David, Nixon, anything else on your end?
Yeah, I think preparation leading into meetings is so critical to getting value for time together, because to get 15 people into a meeting, it's pretty expensive in terms of what Aaron was saying. The perishability of time is a huge reality that we're talking about in this session. And it's really good to be thought about that ahead of a session to make sure everybody gets value. So in LinkedIn, we use pre-reads an awful lot and really invest in the preparation to get value from the time together. And I think that's really respectful of each other's time. So definitely with you. I love the idea of the video work. I think there's a lot to be done there, so we could adopt that in LinkedIn, and I think it's a good call.
Yeah, I know a lot of teams are going toward video, which is awesome to hear. One thing that Aaron mentioned, obviously, visibility on calendars, and as a leader, I totally agree with that. I think it's so important for my team to know what I'm doing, when I can speak. If there is time that I need to block off to work on a project, then I'll just put that I'm working on something. Ask to schedule, or I'll put in actually the subject line what I'm working on, so people can kind of see where my time is being spent. But I think transparency is absolutely key as we continue to work remotely. So thanks for all of that. And we'll go ahead and jump into question number 2. And David Nixon, I'm going to put you on the spot for this one. And this is one a lot of us are struggling now, maybe not so much in the beginning, because, we were not so used to working from home, and we, kind of enjoyed the video and the happy hours and all of that going on. But how are we now continuing to keep up that morale team and that collaboration? And what are we doing to continue to share successes with our group, get everybody together, and not just on a work basis, but also just a personal basis, to keep everybody in touch with what's going on with one another?
Yeah, I think in a virtual world, one of the biggest things we've lost is the informal time together. So if you imagine the meeting we just spoke about with 15 people, and there's some new people in the team, and they might leave the meeting not knowing exactly what was discussed or committed, or how somebody behaved in a certain way, and trying to understand the culture of the team. And that sort of informality is being lost in a virtual world. So something we've been promoting with our teams is like agenda-less time together, which has to be thoughtful, but time together to just have a coffee, talk about some smaller questions that might have arisen, and connecting as people in the way we would in an office environment if we got that opportunity. So I think it's important to think about what goes on in a less formal scenario in between our teams and the way we collaborate. Certainly, we've done lots of trying to be as fun as we can in a virtual world, and that I kind of see it reviving now. We went through, if you think about the 12 months, early in the process, we did a really good job, and teams were very engaged. Then there was a degree of fatigue with that approach of trying to make it fun in a virtual world, and right now I'm seeing that's resurging a little bit. Last week we did a comedy event with 100 people, and it went really well, where people were just really up for something different, right? So it's about really making the most and being brave about things that we're trying to do together and make it work. But it's definitely hard. I would really encourage the informal connections that we've got to make some effort to make, and really understand what's going on around us. I'm particularly thoughtful for people who are new to role, and of course in the SDR world, so many of us are pretty fast moving in our career, and as a result, we've got lots of people on our teams that are new. So we've got to give each other time without necessarily a clear agenda to connect and get to know each other and ask the questions of what's going on around us. That's really it, Lauren.
Awesome. Great. And Aaron, what has your team been doing? What have you been doing to facilitate more, great morale as we're still, remote and not being able to see, and I guess we'll see everybody, but be everyone's presence on a daily basis? Yeah.
So I love the comedy idea David mentioned. I'm curious, David, who was the comedian?
We had a person from London, actually, a professional comedian, and they do it as an organized virtual event. And it went I was a little bit skeptical, being honest. It's like one of those things that could really work or maybe not, particularly with a multinational audience, because our EMEA-based team is obviously from many different nations. And it went really well, and they were able to manage the room in terms of different things that were going on and make it interesting and engage people. So it wasn't. It was all very well managed as an event, as opposed to just a comedian on a virtual feed. So it went really well, and I'm sure anywhere around the world you get something equivalent. But I was surprised how well it worked in the circumstances.
Yeah, I've worked with a comedian named John Seelig out of Montreal. Does a great job doing events. He also helps people write their own jokes. He's a former salesperson turned comedian. Which I think he's got a unique perspective. There's lots of jokes about procurement people, operations, people blocking deals, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
And so we've been doing that. We do coffee check-ins, and then we also we keep our playlist. We use Chorus. You could use Chorus or Gong, either one, to do call recordings. And we ask everybody to add some of their content to different playlists we have. And then we play those playlists like every Friday. I play like a favorite pick or two from some of these different, we got one called the Sizzle Reel, we got one called Greatest Hits, and we got one called the Blooper Reel, which is just for fun. Really, when something funny or even if something awkward happens, right? Like snip it so the rest of us can laugh at you. Please, have the decency. Let's make this fun. Those are a couple of ideas.
I love about that, Aaron, is like we could take ourselves very seriously in a virtual world. Well, we could take ourselves very seriously every day in real life, right? In the virtual world, it feels almost even more so to be more formal, more serious. And then the blooper reel is nice because it just, makes light of, we all make mistakes, particularly in sales, right, with our customers. And we've got to learn from them, and it's positive learning to take the blooper from it. So I love that.
Favorite blooper clip. Last week, one of my AEs was selling to a buyer named Alexa, and he said, "Oh, hi." And then it went off in the background and started talking to him. It was pretty hilarious. It scared him to death too, and it was all on camera.
Has anybody? We've done and we did. This was like an all. I think it was more of just an enterprise one that we did, but it was the Foodie Magician. It's Josh Beckerman. Has anybody heard of him?
No,
I do not.
He's been doing virtual magic shows, and I was like, I'm not one to totally believe in magic, but it was pretty fantastic. It was like he interacted with everybody in the audience, so I would definitely look into that if you want something fun for the group. But David, what's going on in your world for morale?
Yeah, that's very cool. I love the idea of even bringing in a magician. At a company-wide scale, we used to do something in person called Vidyard Coffee House, which was essentially just a Vidyard talent show. And I have to tip my hat to HR and a lot of the people that work on planning events, because they have found a way to virtualize it. And we basically had a bunch of a big Zoom meeting, but people were able to come in, and some people were telling jokes, some people singing, some people were playing an instrument, and we kind of brought that to a virtual space, which was really cool to see. But specifically for our teams, one of the things I think is a big miss from being in virtual space versus being in an office is there's a certain, enjoyment of being a BDR and being, caught up in like that sales floor experience where, your friend just got someone that he's pitching to, and like, you have that urgency to do it yourself. And there's a certain part that's hard to replicate, virtually, because you can't necessarily be in the same space, hearing that, sales floor cheer and hustle. So, what I've had is I've tried to bring, I love the idea, Aaron, of having, some of those calls that you pull forward every week that we can take a look at. But we've also try to create some of that in Slack where we just post some of our wins, post some of our losses. There are some funny things that get posted in there because some people come up with the, quite audacious replies to our emails. The our team does it too, where we'll post ridiculous things that happen to come in on our website chat. And we just try to have fun with it. We're just trying to share real-time wins, real-time losses. I've had some reps who just literally have sat in on a Zoom call together while they build out their accounts. Not necessarily that they're actively talking the whole time. It's more so just like, I'm in the presence of someone else. I'm working towards building out, doing some of the work to get ready for my calls, get ready for my emails. Once in a while, they'll, hey, how would you do this? Or what do you think about that? But just a really cool way to try to bring back some of that, teamwork or team spirit of being in the office and hearing each other and kind of, jiving off one another as you would in sales.
Yeah, I mean, everyone thinks a great point about being there for the team and also just not taking it too seriously because, it's easier to laugh things off when, you have your friend sitting next to you and say, oh no, I just had, an awful cold call. But when you're here by yourself, and you're calling people, it's like, who do I talk to? Who do I, kind of make fun of myself with? So I love it. And also that's one of the good part about being a salesperson is just being able to say, hey, that was not a great call, either on my end or somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Now, how do I get back into it and continue moving? So that's all great. David Nixon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying what David said there was like, we've got to make a very conscious effort to celebrate the wins. I love the idea of like also making light of the errors we make. And it's, as you said, it's like part of sales and it is fun. It has to be, right? Because it happens a lot. It's part of learning, but we've got to really make a conscious effort to celebrate the small wins as well as the big. And of course, we're all doing awards and recognition, but it's how do we, celebrate that win, the day-to-day stuff that would have happened naturally in an office environment. It's something we got to be conscious of, because that does feed into time management. The better our energy is and the better we feel about ourselves and what we're doing and how we can engage our co-workers ultimately gives us better energy to get more use out of our time. And we can underplay or undervalue that. And I think it's really important to make light and of the things that don't go quite so well, but also celebrate the things, even the small things that do go well.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I've been trying to work on, and it is a time commitment, so based on your calendar, your schedules, but I've been trying to obviously not only meet with my management team, my leadership team, but also do kind of those second level check-ins with every BDR more frequently. And that way, I get to know everybody more on a personal level. I think it's a little bit differently because I actually started remotely, so I never met anybody in person, but just get to know people, know that, they not only have their manager, but also, their director around, or whether, you're a CRO or a VP of sales, and just kind of seeing how people are doing on a personal and professional level. I think that goes a long way with the team as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move into our next question, which is going to be kind of on a topic, different topic, but meeting fatigue. So we talked about, keeping the morale up and, getting to know people and just collaborating with one another. But there is a such thing with meeting fatigue and constantly feeling like you always have to be on video and always on and always smiling. I know sometimes I'm excited for a 5-minute break where I can just, kind of turn off my computer, go get some water and just relax, get another cup of coffee. So David Nixon wants to hear your thoughts on meeting fatigue. If you're seeing it more often now, that we've been remote for quite some time, and how you're helping the team deal with that.
It's definitely a factor, Lauren, right? And I'm sure everybody in this call, in the audience as well as the panel, we all feel it, right? And it's way longer into this completely virtual world than any of us expected, right? I think you said it a moment ago, Ren, like actually scheduling in the buffer time to give you a chance to take 5 minutes away. I've heard of the 20-20-20 rule, which is like every 20 minutes, you got to look 20 feet away for 20 seconds just to give your eyes that break. It is a real thing, and there's a health risk that goes with this that I think we as leaders and as a team, from an SD point of view, need to be aware of. I'm also a big fan of blocking out time. This has already come up. I think, Aaron, you mentioned this in a way. Blocking out time to protect your own personal time, and actually how do you structure your calendar on a weekly basis? Because what can happen is I could easily end up with scheduled meetings from like 7 in the morning to like my calendar is 24/7 because I'm in a global role. So it's very important. I block out time to protect for what I need to do personally, and part of that has to be self-care. I'd love to know what other people think on that. And also buffer time for meetings that go over, but also to take a break away from the computer and your brain a chance to reconcile what's been going on and to digest and look after yourself. So you've got to, you know what, the sense right now I have, and we have this across our SDR population globally, is that there's an insatiable demand for work. Time is perishable, and we could all work way too many hours. So I think we've got to have self-control, be able to say no to certain things, give yourself breaks in between, and just allow for the fact that you can't just be back-to-back in meetings. It's not healthy. And that is calendar management that Aaron has already referred to. And I think it's something I would massively encourage, particularly people starting their career, is really thinking about, how do you manage that diary from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, self-care within that and looking after yourself. And Lauren, you mentioned this about your own calendar. Of actually, when a task comes up, is put it in as a calendar item. If it's going to take 15 minutes to do, put it in at 15 minutes to say, get whatever done. I've got to record a video after this. I've got blocked out time to record the video, and that's in the diary, because if I don't put it in, it won't get done. And then guess what? I'll have to do it at the end of the day when it's meant to be my family time or whatever it might be. So really be conscious of that fatigue and how it's affecting you, and look after yourself. But the only real antidote that I've experienced is calendar management. I'd love to know what other people think. Aaron or David?
Yeah, I would just add, I'm doing a lot more 30-minute meetings and 45-minute meetings. I almost never do hour-long meetings anymore, because most things can be done in 45 minutes. And then if it's so good that you want to go over, usually people got that time. And if you've checked all the boxes, you've done what you need to do, then everybody's got 15 minutes to use the restroom, get a cup of coffee or whatever. So 30 minutes, 45 minutes. When I see my reps putting an hour in the calendar, I'm like, man, that agenda better be packed. Also for prospects, and they're like, oh, they didn't accept. Well, maybe they didn't accept because it was a full hour, and they know if they wanted to dedicate a full hour to it. Make it a half hour and be ready to run. People's time is their most valuable commodity. Treat other people's time preciously, and they'll reciprocate.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the spot on of, just the 45 minutes, 30 minutes. Even for myself, I've been starting to do shorter meetings, and if we need to meet more frequently throughout the week, that's great. But after sitting here staring at the same group of people for quite some time, it does get exhausting. I mean that with the most respect to the people we're talking to. But
apart from us, Lauren, this one could go on all day, right?
And it would be the best hour of my life. But no, I mean, just in general, like with my direct reports, we do 45-minute one-on-ones each week, and sometimes we add another half an hour if we need to discuss more. But if we only take, a half an hour, 35, 40 minutes, I'm okay with that. Some weeks aren't as packed as others, and it's okay to cut meetings short. And I think people think because it's on the calendar, you have to go the entire time, but you really don't have to go the entire time. You can give somebody 15 minutes back to take a walk outside, or go grab a cup of coffee.
I love that, Lauren. If I may jump back in on, right? Yeah. Something we do regularly is we cross-check with each other, say, hey, Aaron, I actually don't have that much on this week. Do you want to skip one-on-one, or could we cover it through other channels? Like, let's just do it. What are the key points that you wanted to cover? And then you get 30 minutes back. That is just such a wonderful feeling when you go, actually, we can cover this next week or bounce it through some other channel. That is something that I would really encourage, is look ahead at the meetings you have committed to, and be sure that if they're internal meetings, particularly like cross-check content and agenda preparation, if they're not going to be productive, call the other person, say, hey, do I need to be there? Because very often we're brought into a meeting and we actually don't need to attend, or there's other ways that we can consume the content. I think that's a great call about cutting it short as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, I was going to mention on that too, what you can also try, and I know some of the meetings that I'm on, especially the weekly reoccurring ones, is actually to set them for like slightly off times. So instead of 30 minutes, do 25. Instead of doing like an hour, do 55. Instead of 45, do 40. And it's just, no one, like the default setup on a lot of calendars doesn't usually optimize to like book it right on the back of another meeting. It usually optimizes those half-hour breakpoints or 15-minute breakpoints, and you're organically adding that 5 minutes of breathing time into the meeting prior to going. And like you said, generally speaking, an hour meeting does wrap up a little bit earlier. And if you do need the extra 5 minutes, you've already put your buffer time in there to go the extra 5 minutes, so you're not running over for the next. But you're conscious that it's, instead of 30 minutes, it's 20, and you try to get through the agenda, knowing that there's 5 minutes of buffer for each of you to leverage should you need it. The other thing I'll say is, especially for my SDRs, where they're on 10, 15 quick calls a day, our huddles, when we're talking about Zoom fatigue, I needed the opportunity to chat with them, because I didn't have the luxury of just turning over my shoulder and being like, hey guys, there's this thing coming up. So it was very helpful for me to have those team huddles. But eventually we got to a point where, like, this, Dave, this needs to be like off time. Like, we're gonna spend 30 minutes. I can't talk about work. You get 5, and then it's like 25 of us just hanging out, and we just want to have some of us want to get caught up. Walk to the kitchen, have a coffee, and just almost like a block in the calendar from, we'll say, important meetings. And we use that as just our like SDR chill out time, where sometimes we would play, I can't remember, an online game. I'm blanking on it now, which is unfortunate, but like Jackbox would be a good example. Thank you, Amy, in the chat. And yeah, so we do things like that, just to have like 25 minutes a day, get a coffee, have a snack if you haven't eaten. And I was given 5 minutes at most to give them any important work-related things, but it was kind of a decompression time, which also went over a long way for especially busy weeks.
Yeah, I think David, you made a good point about having quick huddles, and it's something that we do as well. We quick huddles, and they used to be half an hour huddles every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we cut them to about 10 minutes or so. And every Monday we set our goals for the week. I set my goals as well, so the team can hold myself accountable. Wednesdays we check in on those goals and see if anybody can help get there if we're struggling with anything. And then Friday we say if we hit those goals Friday morning, or what we're going to do to get to our goals for the week. So I think taking any meeting you have, and I think everybody should do this, going through your calendar and seeing what meetings that you can make a bit shorter, or if there is a meeting that you can bi-weekly instead of weekly, maybe something that can be a weekly meeting and then a bi-weekly Slack or email. But I think going through your calendar and being able to manage that is really important. Awesome. David Nobrega, we'll stay on you for this next topic. So talking about calendars and prioritization, a lot of us don't say no, and we don't say no to meetings, and we we'll mark it tentative, and then we feel like we have to get on that meeting. What's the best way to, and we use the kind of word we were talking, ruthless prioritization, but saying like, there are too many people in this meeting, or I don't need to be here, I can just be on a follow-up email. David, can you kind of give us an example or how you do that?
Yeah, I think we also mentioned it a little bit on like the meeting fatigue, where it's being okay to have a check-in, like, is there anything you need to chat about this week? And sometimes opening the conversation prior to the meeting to check in. One standard we always have, for us is customer comes first. If you have commitments made to customers, and I don't just mean like another meeting booked on top of it, but maybe you're getting something ready for a meeting. Maybe you're getting something ready because you told someone you're going to follow up on Tuesday at 4:30, and this is your time that you need to get caught up because you have 4 more calls this day. I generally try to pitch to the team that it's a very, very customer-centric approach. And if it's a team huddle, I'll happily get you caught up in a 5-minute asynchronous video if there's something that you missed that's work pertaining versus those social moments. So I just try to force that, it's customer first, get that done. And if it's an internal thing, we'll find a way to get you caught up. And if you need 10 minutes in your day because you've just been slammed and you need that 20 minutes to decompress, I've tried to make it best to open that up to the team, that things like huddles, like that's the first place you can take time from should you, be a little behind and need that time.
Awesome. Aaron, what about you?
I would point out that the calendar is a leading indicator for everything. All of the sales leaders watching us right now, all of the sellers, the CRM and your sales and your number at the end of the quarter is a lagging indicator. The calendar is your leading indicator. That's where you can see sometimes 1, 2, sometimes 3 weeks into the future exactly how time is organized and what things aren't optimal that are going to end up biting you. But it's not going to show up in the actual sales results or in the pipeline results for another 2 or 3 months until the end of the quarter, right? So I try to make sure that I like David's point about customer centricity. I try to make sure that there's you've got some built-in repetitive meetings that they're valuable, but also ask people to we use a calendar first approach at Logic. So one of the biggest ways that you lose time is by sending the email, "Hey Lauren, next week I have a meeting. I want to connect with you. I'm interested in." And maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday between these, no. Send it, even if it involves a third-party person, even involves a prospect or a client. If it's a week out, the time's probably available. Put it in the invite, put the agenda in there. And if you give people, allow people to take that calendar-first approach, they'll be much more efficient at organizing the time in the calendar. They'll get things scheduled a week or two ahead of what they would if they were organizing everything in the inbox. Occasionally you have a double book, hey, you have to let them know, hey, we got a double book. Sorry, I'm going to have to move this. But you know what? A lot of things move. So a lot of times if you've got a double book a week out, that's okay. Because one of those meetings is going to move and you'll still have, what I want to do is maximize, if you look at my calendar, it is oftentimes back to back to back to back. If I'm trying to maximize my sales numbers, I want to keep it pretty organized. Right.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. Cool. David, thanks for anything on your end?
Yeah, certainly. I think the ability to say no is a really important skill. I think, as we've talked about so many times through this conversation, the time is precious and limited. So you should be entitled to ask questions about what people are expecting of their time and why. Really make sure it's valuable for you and for them. And to that end, it may lead to you saying, no, this is not right to use the time in this way. We talk a lot about FOMO, the fear of missing out. I also think about JOMO, the joy of missing out, and the fact that there are certain things you might be joyful not doing. And I would say, hey, look, folks, if you're looking at something saying this is not going to bring joy to my end result and the team value, well, then you might actually need to not do that and enjoy not doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there have been some meetings that, that I've even, scheduled. And at the end of that meeting, I think to myself, that probably could have just been an email. So any follow-up meetings, we just schedule that because it's nature, it's second nature to all of us. Just be like, oh, we have to discuss this quickly. Let me throw time on our calendar. And I'm definitely at fault, at this big time. But throwing time on calendars, sometimes it can be, a 10-minute email, and you have a quick email chain, and people can do it at their kind of own leisure. Obviously, if it's not urgent. So that's another tactic I've been trying to work on, especially for my team.
And use the decline button. If you need to decline it, that's okay. It's like, hey, it's not right, decline.
And Lauren,
I'm offended when it comes to your inbox, like, Aaron declined your invite. I'm always going out to that. How'd you decline? No, I'm kidding.
Aaron's always declining.
No, that's not true.
Dr. Decline.
Awesome. You guys, this has been fantastic. I really do appreciate Lauren for moderating this panel. David, and you guys were all fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. We're a little bit over time already, so we're not going to take any questions. But head to the booths or the lounge to network with your colleagues. There's a bunch of people in there already. Feel free to tag and kind of open up a conversation with anybody here. And of course, the booths to learn more about Logic or any of the products that are sponsors today. So feel free to jump in there. Thank you all again. I really appreciate it. This was incredibly helpful for all those SDR managers out there, and thanks. We'll see you guys soon.
Great job, Lauren.
Thanks, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Great job.
Thanks
so much.
guys. See you, folks.